Now I'd like to introduce Sean Ross, who's going to present our Rockwell Award winner, Valerie Geller. Sean is a 28-year industry veteran, including his current role as Vice President at Edison Research. Sean has spent many years in the trade journals, working for Billboard, Airplane Monitor, and the M Street Journal. And for the last year, Sean has been the executive editor of music and programming for RadioInfo.com and author of his weekly e-newsletters, Ross on Radio. Ladies and gentlemen, Sean Ross.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Conclave number 12. It is the summer of 1987. This is the Sheridan Park Place. Sorry about the air conditioning. We're going to try and get that work done for you. Go outside and turn on the radio. The top three this week are Shakedown by Bob Seger, Alone by Heart, I Want to Dance with Somebody Who Loves Me by Whitney Houston. So the top 40 resurgence is kind of over by about now. But KDWB and WLOL still sound great, right? And if you turn on AM radio, if you turn on WCCO, the big 50,000-watt giant, you will still hear some of these records occasionally. Because it's 1987 and WCCO is still playing records. You turn on WLS, 50,000-watt blowtorch from Chicago, they are still playing some records. It's 1987, they are 2 years from going all talk. And when they do, people think they're nuts because WGN is solid. They're never going to change. You're never going to rattle them or shake up that radio station, right? In fact, there aren't a lot of talk radio stations in 1987. You got to have deep pockets to do it. There's not a lot of available syndicated talent. There is not, in 1987, a news talk seminar at the Conclave. That is still a couple of years away. And that is why Valerie Geller is not at the Conclave. Valerie Geller is at the next desk over from me at Radio and Records in Los Angeles. She is the newly arrived news talk editor, having come from K101 in San Francisco and some legendary call letters like KOA in Denver. And because it's 1987, Valerie is sitting at my desk and going, why don't they write more about news talk radio? Because it's 2 years from the first talk host getting the idea to send a tea bag to his congressman. We work at Radio and Records. I cover oldies. She covers news talk. It's radio, but it doesn't play new records, so there's not a lot of attention for news talk at Radio and Records at the time. Valerie doesn't get despondent. She goes from R&R to another radio station, KFI Los Angeles. KFI is just going talk, but what are you going to do against KABC? They're solid. They're not going anywhere. Valerie manages, as the first executive producer of KFI, to get things start to pop at that radio station. Valerie goes from there to her dream job, WABC New York. WABC, by this time, they've been talk for 8 years. It finally looks like a smart idea. But everything's not perfect there. Every now and then, Valerie calls and tells me she's got this really talented guy in middays, but they don't like Rush Limbaugh because he's underperforming the rest of the station. Valerie stays at WABC for about a year. And when Valerie leaves, Valerie's got an interesting choice to make because where do you go after WABC? Valerie goes to Europe. Valerie helps some radio stations, including some state-owned radio stations that have never had to compete. She helps them become real radio stations. Valerie hosts a producers workshop in New York for producers of talk radio stations, morning shows on music radio stations, TV producers. Valerie writes a book called Creating Powerful Radio. Then she writes a workbook to go with it. Then she writes another edition of Creating Powerful Radio. And now she has another book, Beyond Powerful Radio, scheduled for release next year. Based on all these things, Valerie ends up working with radio stations on every continent, all over North America, everywhere from Lincoln, Nebraska to London. Valerie Geller has a lot to say about creating powerful radio, but if I were you, I would also ask Valerie for career advice, because I understand that there may be some people here, word gets around, guys talk, you hear things. I understand that there may be some people here who are not outrageously satisfied with their current careers. There may also be some people here who are very satisfied with their current careers, but are wondering where in this changing business they're going to be in 5 years. I would never say that Valerie Geller reinvented herself, because that sort of implies, you know, the talented Mr. Ripley, Don Draper thing of not being who you are. And Valerie Geller is very clearly who she is and always has been. But at a time when we are being told to take what we do and find new venues and new platforms for it, Valerie Geller has been doing that for the 23 years I've known her. Valerie Geller could have gone on and programmed another news talk radio station after WABC. Instead, something interesting happened. She ended up becoming programmer or executive producer to all of them. Ladies and gentlemen, please let me give you your 2010 Rockwell winner, Valerie Geller.
Thank you so much. I am humbled by this award. It means a great deal to me. Thank you, of course, to Sean. One of the best things that came out of working with Radio and Records was meeting and having the opportunity to work with people like Sean Ross, who is a stellar and an amazing writer and talent. But there are many, many talented people along the journey that I have been so fortunate in my life to have had. Before anything, Tom Kay and Mark and Lester and everybody, Michelle Novak, everyone at the Conclave and on the board of directors of the Conclave, from my heart, I thank you, Harv, all of you, for the work you do, the time you put in. And mostly, it's something Dano talked about yesterday. It's passion. It's passion for radio. It's a thing where we love what we do, we believe in radio. How many people here are on the air? How many people here push that red button and actually face that? Okay. I believe that radio is the last magic that there is in life. It's just magical. There's nowhere else in the world where if you feel alone or depressed or isolated, and then suddenly you hit a black button, and you're no longer alone. Maybe it's music that lifts your spirits and makes you feel happy, or maybe it's a disc jockey or a talk personality that connects you to community and makes you think about things. But you never have to be alone if you've got a radio. And yes, we are in a technological shift, the likes of which the world has never seen. Yes, radio is having all kinds of hits from the economic crisis that our whole country and, quite frankly, the entire world is in. And consolidation hit radio hard. But at core, personalities will thrive and survive always. And in fact, Sean jokingly, half with a jaundiced eye, I am always looking for talent, because if you put talent on the air, you always get an audience. It's an amazing thing. And now we don't just have radio to play with, we have the internet and all kinds of mobile media. We're in one of the most exciting times. It's like being a pioneer. We are in a brave new world of technology that's only going to help personalities connect with audiences out there. If you work in radio, you work in the story business. And I believe there are no boring stories, only boring storytellers. Nothing in this life is boring. So a lot of the work I do and the books I've written is just How not to be boring. The credo of powerful radio: tell the truth, make it matter, and never be boring. Whatever you want to say, focus, engage, opinion, position, tell powerful stories. That's the formula. And it isn't any harder than that. And yeah, there are lots of tricks. Speak and write visually because we have the imagination medium. But even if you're looking at it, we've now found that because men are so visual, and it's proven in the brain science, that if you can describe things visually, it even enhances their experience more and allows them to connect and engage more powerfully. With women, it's the emotion. If you can touch her heart, you have her as a listener. So again, learning these things, learning to powerfully engage a listener, never going on the air without asking the question, why should somebody listen to this? If somebody's going to give you the most precious thing they have on God's green earth, which is their time, what are you giving them to make it worth it? Always think about the listener. And that's the message, and that's in the 3 books I've written and in the 4th. Tell the truth, make it matter, never be boring. And again, many, many thanks to the Conclave. Heartfelt. Thank you very much.